The cold emptiness of space stretched endlessly, a black sea dotted with distant stars. Amid the silence, a small ship floated, battered and lifeless, its hull torn and smoke curling from shattered panels. Inside, a young woman lay slumped against the console. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale, and the small flicker of her life support almost gone. Mara had been a brilliant engineer, a mind too sharp for the quiet colonies she once called home. She had been on a supply run when everything went wrong, pirates, or perhaps mercenaries. She never had a clear view. The ship had been attacked, and she had been left for dead, drifting in the void. A sudden blip on the sensor screen of another ship broke the silence. Cale, a rugged mechanic known across several systems for salvaging wrecks, frowned as he adjusted his controls. Life signs, a faint pulse. He squinted, focusing on the readings. Someone's alive, he muttered to himself. He rarely took risks for life. Ships were easier to fix than people, but the pulse was steady, stubborn in the dark. Something about it made him pause. Cale docked carefully with the derelict. Panels hung loose from the hull, and sparks flew in the zero-gravity void as he maneuvered. Inside, the corridors smelled of burned circuitry and metal. He floated forward, toolkit strapped to his waist, scanning for heat signatures. And then he saw her. Mara. Her eyes fluttered weakly as she tried to focus on the blurry shape moving toward her. Kyle knelt beside her, checking her suit's integrity. Small tears in the fabric hissed in the vacuum, but nothing critical. Still, she wouldn't survive long without help. "Hey, you're going to be okay," he said firmly, though his voice sounded strange in the empty cabin. "I've got you." She tried to speak, but her lips barely moved. Her eyes searched his face, confusion and fear mingling with exhaustion. "Don't worry about talking," Kyle said. "Just hold on. I'll get you out of here." Carefully, he strapped her to a portable life support rig. He adjusted the oxygen flow, patched minor breaches in her suit, and secured the fragile systems. He had seen death before, had dragged more bodies from wrecks than he cared to count. But something about her stubborn pulse tugged at him. Not pity, not luck, hope. Hoisting her into his own ship, Cale sealed the airlock and initiated the emergency engines. The wrecked ship drifted away, abandoned, but the stars remained endless, indifferent, and cold. Inside Cale's ship, Mara lay unconscious, breathing more steadily under his care. Cale glanced at her again, checking her vitals. "You're tougher than you look," he muttered. "Somehow you're still alive. I don't know how, but you are." The hum of the engines filled the cabin. Cale worked in silence, repairing the life support systems, running diagnostics on the portable rig. He had no hospital, no advanced medics, just his tools and experience. Yet every human instinct he possessed pushed him to keep her alive. Mara's eyes flickered open after a while, confusion clouding her gaze. She tried to move, but winced in pain. "Where?" she whispered. "You're safe." "For now," Kyle replied, keeping his tone calm. "You were drifting out there. Your ship didn't make it. You're lucky I found you." Her eyes widened slightly, fear and disbelief mixing with gratitude. I thought..." Her voice faltered, and she swallowed hard. "I thought I was alone." "You're not alone anymore," Cale said firmly. "I don't leave people to die." She tried to sit up, testing her strength, but Cale gently pushed her back. "Take it easy. You've been through a lot. You need rest." Mara's eyes scanned the interior of the small ship. Instruments blinked softly, and the faint hiss of the life support system filled the cabin. She noticed Cale's hands, strong and steady as they worked. You saved me," she said quietly. Cale shrugged. "Just doing what anyone would. Though most wouldn't bother. He offered a small, crooked smile. Guess I'm not. Most people. For a moment, silence settled between them, filled only by the hum of the ship and the faint blip of her heartbeat on the monitor. In that quiet, Mara felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Safety, or at least the first spark of it. Kyle began piloting the ship toward the nearest space station, a small hub known for repairs and supplies. He kept glancing at her, evaluating how much she could handle. Something about her presence unsettled him, not because she was weak, but because he sensed potential. Humans had a strange way of surviving. Somehow she was one of them, and somehow that made him trust she would endure. As they traveled, Mara's mind slowly pieced together fragments of memory. She remembered the attack, the flash of lasers, the sound of metal tearing, and the sudden, terrifying silence afterward. She shivered despite the cabin's warmth. Kyle noticed and adjusted the ship's temperature, giving her a blanket from his own stash. "Why did they leave me?" she asked after a while, her voice small. Kyle shook his head. "Doesn't matter. What matters is that you're alive. That pulse of yours is stubborn, hopeful, and I don't leave hope behind." Mara stared at him, and for the first time since the attack, she felt a flicker of something stronger than fear. Perhaps she could survive. Perhaps she could fight. The stars outside stretched endlessly, cold and unfeeling, but inside the small cabin of Kale's ship, a new warmth had begun. Mara's pulse was steady, Kale's hands were sure, and somewhere in that fragile combination of courage and ingenuity, something remarkable had begun. The survival of a human against impossible. As the ship glided through the darkness, Kale glanced at the sensors again. "We'll get you fixed up," he said softly. "And then, we figure out who left you out there." Mara nodded weakly, the faintest spark of determination in her eyes. Her journey was far from over, but for the first time she felt the pulse of life stronger than the pull of death. Kyle smiled faintly, adjusting the controls. "You're alive. That's what matters. For now, that's enough. We call it hope." The ship moved on through the endless black, carrying 2 humans bound. By circumstance, 1 mechanic and 1 survivor, and the quiet, stubborn light of hope flickered between them, small but unbreakable. The soft hum of the ship's engines was the only sound as Mara slowly stirred. Her eyes blinked against the harsh artificial light, trying to focus. The cabin felt strangely safe, a stark contrast to the cold emptiness she had been drifting in. Pain lanced through her body, reminding her she was still alive. Kale noticed her movement immediately. He was sitting at the control panel, monitoring the ship's systems, but his eyes flicked toward her. "Easy," he said calmly. "You're safe. You're on my ship." Mara tried to speak, but her throat felt dry, her voice barely a whisper. Where am I?" "You were drifting out there unconscious," Kyle explained. "I found you. Your ship didn't make it." His tone was factual but gentle, like he had delivered this news hundreds of times before. "I patched you up, the best I could." Her gaze swept across the cabin, lingering on the life support rig beside her. "You saved me?" she asked, a mix of disbelief and gratitude in her voice. Kale shrugged lightly as if it were nothing. "I saw a pulse. I don't leave pulses behind." He offered her a small, reassuring smile. "Somebody had to make sure you didn't drift into nothingness." Mara tried to sit up, testing her strength. Pain shot through her side, and she winced. Kyle quickly moved closer, steadying her with a firm hand. "Hold on. You need to recover. No sudden moves." She looked at him, studying the lines of his face. His rugged appearance and calm confidence gave her a strange sense of security. For the first time since the attack, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. "You're strong," Kale said, as if reading her thoughts. Humans have a stubborn way of surviving. And you? You've got that stubbornness in spades. Mara let out a small, tired laugh. I don't even remember what happened. It's all blurry. She closed her eyes briefly, trying to recall the fragments of memory, the flash of bright lights, the sound of metal tearing, the sudden silence. Who attacked me? Cale shook his head. I don't know. But whoever it was, they left you for dead. That makes them careless. He paused, studying her. Lucky for you, I don't consider people disposable. She managed a weak nod, her mind still foggy. Why did you bother? Kyle leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Call it curiosity. Call it stubbornness. Or maybe I just don't like leaving someone with a pulse to die. His voice softened. We humans, we fight, even when everything seems lost. The words resonated with Mara. She felt her heartbeat, steady slightly, as if the strength of another human nearby was contagious. She had survived the attack, and now, thanks to Kyle, she had another chance. Kyle guided her through the cabin, showing her where she could rest and where the basic supplies were stored. You'll need food and water soon, he said, and don't try to move too much. You're healing faster than normal, but you're still fragile. Mara watched him, curiosity piqued. Faster than normal? She asked. Cale glanced at her vitals on the monitor. Yeah, your body adapts quickly. Humans are remarkable that way. Even when we're hurt, we find a way to survive. He gave a small, knowing smile. I've seen it before. And you? You're no exception. She felt a small spark of pride, despite her weakness. Perhaps it was the first time she truly believed she could survive. Thank you, she whispered. Kyle shrugged again, as if he hadn't done much. Don't thank me yet. You still have a long way to go. Mara's memory started to return, in small flashes. She remembered the mission, the quiet colony she had left behind, the mysterious research she had been working on. Then came the attack, sudden and violent. She shivered, the fear returning for a moment. Kyle noticed and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. It's okay. You're not alone anymore. We'll figure this out together. For hours, Mara rested, her body slowly mending under Cale's careful watch. He occasionally adjusted her portable life support, monitored her vitals, and ensured the cabin remained safe. Outside, the stars drifted endlessly, indifferent to the small struggle, taking place within the ship. But inside, a fragile human connection was forming, a bond that would grow stronger as their journey continued. When Mara finally sat up, a little steadier, she looked at Cale with curiosity and newfound determination. What's your name? She asked. Kyle, he replied simply. And you? Mara, she said. I don't know why I survived, or why you found me. Cale's eyes softened. Sometimes it's not about why. It's about what you do with the chance you've been given. You're alive, Mara. That's the important part. And together, we'll make sure you stay that way. Mara nodded, the faintest spark of determination appearing in her eyes. She could feel the stubborn pulse of life inside her, the one that refused to give up. And now, with Cale watching over her, she had a chance to turn that pulse into strength. The ship hummed steadily, carrying them through the endless black of space. Mara leaned back, letting herself feel the strange comfort of being alive, of not being alone. Cale worked quietly at the controls, yet Mara could feel the unspoken promise he would not let her die. For the first time since the attack, Mara felt hope. Not the fragile hope of chance or luck, but the fierce, stubborn hope of survival, of fighting back. She had been left to die, but now, with Cale's help, she had been given a chance to live. And perhaps, just perhaps, that chance was the beginning of something greater. The stars stretched on endlessly, silent witnesses to the small, stubborn human spirit that refused to fade. Mara's pulse, steady and strong, became a quiet beacon in the darkness, and Kale, watching over her, called it hope. The stars outside stretched endlessly, indifferent to the tiny ship that moved through the void. Mara sat in the cabin, still weak, but slowly regaining strength. Kyle adjusted the controls, glancing at the readings from the ship's sensors. Something wasn't right. "Sensors are picking up something," Kyle said, voice tense. "Small drones. Moving fast. They're not random debris. Someone's tracking us." Mara's brow furrowed. "Who? Why?" Kale shook his head. "I don't know yet, but whoever they are, they didn't finish their job the first time. They want you, or what you carry. Either way, we need to move fast." Mara felt a surge of fear, but she swallowed it. She had survived the attack once. She could do it again. "What can we do?" she asked, determination in her voice. Kale smirked faintly. "We fight smart. Humans have a way of turning weakness into strength." He tapped the control panel, plotting a course through a dense asteroid field. "Aliens? Or whatever they are. Don't expect humans to think like this. They rely on numbers, speed, predictability. We'll use our brains." The first drones appeared as tiny points of light, blinking and moving in formation. Kyle maneuvered, the ship weaving between asteroids, the small vessel dancing with dangerous agility. Mara helped, calling out coordinates and adjusting minor systems. Her hands, though still weak, moved with precision and confidence. "Faster! Left! No, right, harder!" she shouted as Kyle twisted the controls. The ship ducked and dove narrowly, avoiding collisions with floating rock. The drones followed, relentless, but their movements were predictable. Kale laughed quietly. "See? That's the human advantage. Predictable patterns? Not for us. We improvise." Mara smiled despite the fear. She felt alive, sharper, faster, and more capable than she had ever imagined. Each maneuver reminded her why humans had survived. For millennia, courage, ingenuity, and the refusal to give up. The drones tried to surround them, forming a net of lights that blinked ominously. Kale paused briefly, scanning. "They're trying to herd us into open space. Classic trap. But we're not going quietly." He reached into his toolkit and pulled out a compact EMP device he had modified himself. Mara's eyes widened. "That will work? Trust me," Kyle said. "Humans make tools from nothing. Let's show them what that means." He activated the EMP. A pulse of energy shot out, and the drones convulsed in midair, sparks flying as circuits overloaded. Several drones tumbled silently into the asteroid field, destroyed by the ingenuity of a human mechanic. Mara watched in awe. That was amazing," Kale smirked. "Amazing is surviving when they think you're already dead." They continued through the asteroid field, Kale piloting with skill, and Mara assisting with quick calculations and system adjustments. Their teamwork was seamless, a testament to human adaptability under pressure. Each small success gave them confidence, but the threat was far from over. "Why are they after me?" Mara asked quietly, catching her breath. "I didn't do anything except research." Kale glanced at her. "Exactly. That research, whatever it is, makes you valuable. Dangerous even. People or aliens will chase power or knowledge, and humans, we're often underestimated." Mara's mind raced. Bits of memory returned. Blueprints, alien tech she had, studied strange symbols she had tried to decode. Her work could change the balance of power in the galaxy if it fell into the wrong hands. Her pulse quickened at the thought. "They want my work," she said. "They think it belongs to them." Kyle nodded. "Then we make sure it doesn't." Humans have a stubborn way of surviving, Mara, and part of surviving is fighting back. You've got talent, brains, and this pulse of yours. He touched the monitor lightly, as if acknowledging her stubborn heartbeat. That pulse is hope. Don't ever forget it. Suddenly, a larger ship appeared on the sensors, faster and bigger than the drones. Kale's jaw tightened. That's no scout. They're serious now. Mara felt a shiver of fear, but refused to let it control her. We can outsmart them, she said, recalling the patterns she had observed in her research. They move in predictable waves. If we create decoys, we can mislead them. Kale's eyes lit up. Exactly what I was thinking. Let's rig a few of the drones to explode at intervals. Make noise. Confuse them. Working quickly, they modified some of the remaining drones, setting timers and rerouting power. Mara marveled at how natural it felt, her mind sharp despite the injuries. Kyle had saved her life, but now they were both fighting to survive, combining experience, intelligence, and human stubbornness. The larger alien ship moved closer, scanning the asteroid field. Kale triggered the decoys. Explosions flashed in the darkness, lights scattering, and the alien vessel slowed, confused. The drones, once so organized, were now disoriented, giving Kale and Mara the chance to slip past unnoticed. As the immediate danger faded, Mara exhaled, leaning back in her seat. We did it. We really did it. Kale smiled, a rare moment of pride softening his usually stoic expression. Yeah, humans can be remarkable, even when they're small and weak, even when they're supposed to be outmatched. It's called survival instinct and a little ingenuity. Mara felt a surge of admiration for him and for herself. She realized that humans, even when facing impossible odds, could survive, adapt, and fight back. The spark of hope that Kale had called a pulse was growing stronger inside her. Kale glanced at her, eyes sharp, but approving. Rest now. We've survived this round. But the galaxy is full of hunters. And you're just getting started. Mara nodded. She knew the journey ahead would be dangerous. But with Kale by her side, her mind sharp, and her pulse strong, she felt ready. Humans had survived for countless generations because they refused to quit, refused to die quietly, and refused to accept the impossible. She was one of them, and she was determined to fight back. The stars stretched endlessly outside the small ship, but inside a small light burned bright, a stubborn pulse, a human spark, and a growing hope that even the deadliest hunters could not extinguish. The small ship drifted into the orbit of a forgotten mining colony. Once, long ago, the place had thrived with workers digging deep into the rocky crust. Now it was silent. Buildings stood half-broken, machines rusted, and the landing platforms were covered in dust. No one had lived here for decades. This place looks dead, Mara whispered as she stared out the viewport. Kale nodded. Dead to most. But for us, it's perfect. Empty places mean no eyes, no hunters. And maybe, just maybe, some scraps we can use. The ship settled onto the cracked surface of the landing bay. Dust swirled around the landing struts and the engines powered down with a tired sigh. For the first time in days, Kyle allowed himself to breathe without glancing at the sensors every second. He stood, grabbing his toolkit. Come on, Mara. Time to get to work. If we're going to fight back, we need more than luck. We need upgrades. Mara followed, her steps still a little shaky but steadier than before. She felt stronger every day, her injuries healing faster than she expected. The stubborn pulse inside her pushed her forward. The colony was quiet, filled only with the echo of their footsteps. They explored the abandoned buildings, scavenging for useful parts, wires, energy cells, old mining drones, broken shield generators. Kale's eyes gleamed each time he spotted something useful. Humans built this place with their own hands, Kyle said, examining a rusted mining rig. We always find ways to bend the universe to our will. Even when everything falls apart, we make something new. Mara smiled faintly. You sound almost proud, Kale smirked. I am. Humans are survivors. That's what makes us dangerous. Back on the ship, they spread the scavenged parts across the workbench. Kale's hands moved quickly, his mind racing with possibilities. Mara sat beside him, sketching diagrams and recalling the alien systems she had studied before the attack. What if we reroute their energy pulses? Mara suggested. Their ships rely on predictable rhythms. If we disrupt that, they lose balance. Kale raised an eyebrow. Smart, like cutting the beat from a song. You break the rhythm, you break the flow. Together they began working. Kale welded broken panels into makeshift armor. Mara reprogrammed old drones to act as decoys. They scavenged power cells from the mining colony to boost their engines, even if only temporarily. Piece by piece, the small ship began to look less like a salvager's craft and more like a fighter built for survival. Hours stretched into days. Kyle barely slept, and Mara pushed herself beyond exhaustion, yet neither complained. They were, driven not just by survival but by something deeper. The human refusal to be hunted without striking back. At one point, as sparks flew from Kale's welder, Mara laughed softly. Do you ever stop working? Kyle glanced at her, sweat on his brow. Do you ever stop asking questions? She smirked. Fair enough. Despite the danger, the long hours of work created a bond between them. Mara admired Kale's steady hands, his ability to turn broken scraps into weapons. Kale respected Mara's sharp mind, her ability to see patterns others overlooked. Together, they made an unlikely but powerful team. On the third night, Kale finished installing a new shield system. He powered it on, and the cabin hummed with energy. Not bad, he muttered. Won't last forever, but it'll hold long enough for us to fight back. Mara added her touch, a program designed to scramble alien targeting systems. This will confuse them. For a few seconds at least, enough to make a difference. Kale studied her with admiration. You've got brains and guts, Mara. That makes you dangerous. She shrugged, though a smile touched her lips. I just don't want to be left to die again. The words hung in the air. Kale said nothing, but his jaw tightened. He understood. He had seen too many left behind. He had sworn never to let it happen again. Not if he could help it. The following day, they tested their creations. Kale piloted the ship into the open space above the colony, while Mara activated the reprogrammed drones. The drones flew in erratic patterns, scattering signals across the sensors. For a moment, it looked chaotic. But then Kale grinned. Beautiful. Looks like we've got ourselves a swarm of ghosts. Any hunter chasing us will waste time firing at shadows. Mara watched the drones with satisfaction. Sometimes chaos is the best weapon. Spoken like a true human, Kale said. Later, Kale taught Mara how to handle the ship's controls more confidently. She learned quickly, surprising even herself. Each movement felt natural, as if her instincts had sharpened. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was preparing to fight. That night, as they rested in the quiet cabin, Mara stared at the stars through the viewport. Do you think we can actually win? She asked softly. Kale leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Winning isn't always about destroying the enemy. Sometimes winning is surviving when they want you dead. Sometimes it's outsmarting them, showing them humans can't be broken. He looked at her seriously. We may be smaller, weaker, outnumbered, but we think differently. That's our weapon. Mara nodded slowly, letting his words sink in. She felt her pulse steady, stronger than ever. She understood now. Hope wasn't just about being alive. It was about choosing to fight, to adapt, to turn weakness into strength. Their preparations complete, Kale plotted a new course. The alien hunters would come again, stronger this time, but now he and Mara were ready. The ship was no longer just a salvager's vessel. It was a weapon, a statement of human resilience. As the engines roared to life, Kyle glanced at Mara. "Next time they come for us, we won't just run. We'll show them what humans are made of." Mara smiled, determination in her eyes. "Let's make them regret ever thinking we were weak." The stars stretched before them, endless and cold, but inside the small ship burned the fire of human ingenuity. It was fragile, imperfect, built from scraps and stubbornness, but it was powerful. And soon the hunters would learn that humans, even when left to die, could rise, adapt, and fight back. The ship roared through the empty dark, engines burning brighter than ever before. Kyle sat at the controls, eyes sharp, his hands steady. Mara sat beside him, her fingers dancing across the console as she monitored systems and prepared her programs. The silence between them wasn't heavy. It was focused. Both knew what was coming. "They'll be waiting," Kale said quietly. "Hunters don't stop until the prey is gone." Mara's eyes narrowed. "Then we stop being prey," Kale allowed, himself the faintest smile. "That's the spirit." Sensors lit up suddenly, a chorus of beeps filling the cabin. A fleet was closing in fast, sleek alien ships, their movements sharp and calculated. At the center was a massive command vessel bristling with weapons. Mara's chest tightened at the sight, but her pulse steadied. She remembered Kale's words. Humans fight back, not because they're stronger, but because they refuse to give in. "They're here," Kale said. "Time to test everything we built." The first wave of drones launched from the enemy fleet, swarming like insects. Kale gripped the controls, weaving the ship between asteroids. Mara activated the decoy, drones they had reprogrammed. Ghost signals lit up the enemy sensors, scattering their formation. "Beautiful," Kale muttered, maneuvering with impossible sharpness. The alien drones hesitated, confused by the false readings. Some turned toward empty space, firing at shadows. But the larger ships didn't falter. They pushed forward, engines glowing like blades in the dark. "Shields ready?" Kyle asked. "Online," Mara answered, her voice steady. "They won't hold forever, but long enough." The first blasts slammed into them, shaking the cabin violently. Lights flickered and alarms screamed. Kale gritted his teeth, pushing the ship into a roll that took them behind an asteroid. Chunks of rock shattered under the enemy fire. Mara's fingers flew across the console, sending out scrambling signals. "Their targeting systems are disrupted. They can't lock onto us." Kale grinned. "That's our chance." He darted the ship out from behind the asteroid, racing straight toward the command vessel. Enemy fire rained down, but Mara's programs created bursts of static and ghost images that confused the targeting. Blasts streaked past them, close but never direct. "Closer," Kyle muttered. "Just a little closer." Mara's pulse raced, but her hands stayed steady. Almost in range, the command ship loomed larger, its hull glowing with alien symbols. Kale pulled a compact detonator from his belt and slammed it onto the console. The mining charges they had rigged from scavenged parts armed instantly. "Ready," he said. "Once we're close enough, we'll drop them into their energy field." Mara nodded, sweat glistening on her forehead. "That should overload their core, but Kyle, we'll be in the blast zone." Kale smirked. "That's why we fly like humans, unpredictable." The ship surged forward, dodging wave after wave of fire. Enemy fighters screamed past, trying to box them in, but Kyle spun the vessel into wild rolls, movements no alien pilot would ever risk. Mara activated the shield boosters at just the right moments, deflecting glancing hits. Every second was survival balanced on the edge of disaster. Finally, they broke through the line, racing toward the heart of the command vessel. Kyle slammed the detonator, releasing the charges. They floated for a heartbeat, then were sucked into the ship's glowing energy field. Sparks burst across the alien hull as the overload began. "Now!" Kale shouted. Mara didn't hesitate. She rerouted all power to the engines, pushing them to their limit. The ship screamed as it shot away from the command vessel, fire licking at its engines. Behind them, the charges detonated. A blinding explosion tore through space. The command ship convulsed, fire ripping across its surface. Smaller enemy vessels spun out of formation, some colliding in the chaos. The fleet broke apart in disarray, no longer the perfect hunting machine it had been moments before. Kale let out a sharp laugh, his voice filled with fierce triumph. "That's what happens when you underestimate humans." Mara leaned back, breathless, her eyes wide at the sight. We actually did it." But their victory came at a cost. Warning lights flashed across the console. The shields were nearly gone, the engines damaged from the strain, and the hull bore new scars. Kale frowned. "We're not out yet. Some of them are regrouping." Sure enough, a handful of fighters broke from the chaos, racing after them. Mara's mind raced. "We can't outrun them like this." Kale's eyes narrowed. "Then we outthink them." He twisted the controls, guiding the ship toward a nearby gravity anomaly, a swirling rift of broken space and shifting energy. "Are you insane?" Mara asked, clutching her seat. "Probably," Kale admitted. "But humans make the impossible work." The alien fighters followed, their sleek ships cutting through space with precision. Kale dove into the anomaly, where currents of energy twisted like rivers. The ship shook violently, but Kale's hands were steady. He moved with instinct, not logic, threading through the chaos. The aliens followed, but they weren't built for chaos. One by one, their ships were torn apart by the currents, ripped to pieces by the anomaly's violent pull. Mara watched in awe, her heart pounding. "They can't handle unpredictability, but we can." Kyle grinned fiercely. "Exactly. That's the human way." When they finally emerged from the anomaly, only silence remained behind them. The alien fleet was scattered, their command vessel destroyed, their hunters lost. For the first time, Mara felt not just survival, but victory. She turned to Kyle, her eyes shining. "We won." Kyle shook his head. "Not yet. This was only one battle. They'll come again, stronger. But we showed them something today. We showed them humans aren't prey." Mara felt her pulse steady, stronger than ever. She understood now what Kyle meant by hope. It wasn't just survival, it was defiance. It was the human spirit refusing to break even against impossible odds. She smiled, tired but proud. "Then next time, we'll be ready." Kale nodded, his eyes fixed on the stars ahead. "Yeah. Next time, they'll know humans don't die quietly. They fight." The small ship drifted on, scarred but unbroken, carrying two humans who had turned scraps and stubbornness into victory. Behind them lay wreckage and silence, but ahead stretched endless stars and the promise of more battles to come. The stars stretched endlessly ahead as Kale's ship limped through space, battered but still alive. The hull was scorched, engines whining, and lights flickered as though the vessel itself had fought beside them. Inside, Kale and Mara sat in, silence, exhaustion pressing down on their shoulders. Yet behind the fatigue there was something stronger. Hope. Mara leaned against the console, her voice quiet. "We shouldn't be here. By all logic, we should be dead." Kyle smirked, though his eyes were heavy. "Logic doesn't understand humans. That's why we're still breathing." The ship beeped, drawing their attention. A faint signal blinked on the screen. A human colony not far ahead. Kale stared at the coordinates for a long moment. "That's Haven Reach," he said finally. "Outpost on the edge of the belt? Good. People. Miners mostly." If anyone deserves to know what we've done, it's them. Mara's chest tightened. The thought of seeing other humans after everything made her heart race. She nodded firmly. Then we go to them. The story can't die here. The ship groaned as it descended toward Haven Reach, its landing shaky but steady enough. Dust rose across the landing bay as mechanics and workers rushed forward, tools and weapons in hand, prepared for trouble. When the hatch opened and Kale stepped out with Mara at his side, the crowd froze. "Kyle," a man shouted in disbelief. "You were gone months ago. We thought—" "Yeah, well," Kale interrupted, limping slightly but wearing his usual grin. "Turns out I don't die easy." He glanced at Mara and added, "Neither does she." Mara felt dozens of eyes on her, filled with shock and curiosity. Whispers spread through the crowd. She had been written off, abandoned, a forgotten name. Now she stood alive, scarred but standing tall. Inside the outpost hall, Kale and Mara told their story. They spoke of the alien hunters, the reprogrammed drones, the fight against the command vessel, and the desperate gamble inside the anomaly. Every word drew the people closer, their fear mixing with awe. "They're not invincible," Mara said at last, her voice clear. "They can bleed. They can fail. And humans can fight back." The hall was silent for a heartbeat. Then a roar of voices rose, fists pounding tables, feet stomping the floor. For the first time in years, these colonists felt something powerful: belief. Kyle leaned back in his chair, his smile tired but satisfied. He whispered to Mara, "Told you hope was worth more than engines." Over the next days, Haven Reach transformed. Engineers worked with Kyle, studying the modifications on his ship, learning how human improvisation could outwit alien precision. Mara spent hours sharing her programs and tactics with young techs who soaked up every detail. Word spread quickly beyond the colony. Other outposts picked up the signals, hungry for news, desperate for proof that humans weren't only running or hiding. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't finished. One evening, Mara stood outside the hangar, staring up at the stars. Kyle joined her, wiping grease from his hands. "You've changed," he said quietly. Mara tilted her head. "How so?" "When I found you, you were just surviving. Now you're leading. People listen when you speak." Mara smiled faintly. "They don't listen to me. They listen to the truth, that we don't have to bow down to anyone." Kyle chuckled. "Sounds like a leader to me." She looked at him, her expression serious. "And you? You've been fighting alone for so long. What now?" Kyle gazed at the stars, his grin fading into something more thoughtful. Now I stop being alone. Maybe it's time humans stop fighting as scattered sparks and start burning like a fire." Mara nodded. Together, the weeks that followed were unlike anything the colony had ever seen. Ships were patched, drones reprogrammed, weapons crafted from mining tools. Every person, miner, engineer, farmer, found a role. Hope had turned into determination. Then one day, a lookout shouted from the towers. A small, alien scout ship had entered the sector, searching. Panic rippled for a moment, but it was different now. People looked to Mara and Kyle. "What do we do?" a young mechanic asked. Kyle's eyes narrowed. "We don't run. We show them what happens when they come here." Mara stood tall, her voice steady. "This is our home. We defend it." The battle was short but fierce. The alien scout had weapons, but it wasn't prepared for an entire colony fighting back. Reprogrammed drones swarmed it, distracting its fire. Mining lasers, converted into cannons, cut through its shields. Kyle's patched-up ship delivered the final strike, tearing it apart. When the wreckage burned across the sky, the colony erupted in cheers. For the first time, they hadn't just survived. They had defended their home. Mara looked at the faces around her, shining with pride. She realized something deep in her heart. The fight wasn't about just surviving anymore. It was about living free. That night, a meeting was held in the hall. Colonists from nearby outposts had already arrived, drawn by the news of victory. Kyle stood before them, his voice carrying through the crowded room. The galaxy thinks humans are weak, that we're scattered, broken, prey. They're wrong. Today, here, we proved it. We're not prey. We're hunters of our own destiny. If they want a war, then they'll get one. But it won't be a war of despair. It'll be a war of freedom. A human war. The room thundered with approval. People shouted, cheered, and raised their fists. Mara stood beside him, her chest swelling with pride. She knew this was just the beginning. Later, when the noise had quieted and the stars watched silently above, Kale and Mara sat by the hangar, looking at the horizon. You? No, Kale said. If we survive this, they'll write songs about us. Mara laughed softly. Songs? I'm not sure I want that. Kyle grinned. Doesn't matter what you want. Heroes don't choose to be remembered. They just are. Mara grew quiet, her eyes fixed on the stars. I was left to die once. But you saw a pulse. You called it hope. Maybe that's what humans are. Pulses in the dark, refusing to fade. Kale nodded slowly. And together, those pulses make a fire no one can put out. The two sat in silence, watching the endless sky. The war was far from over, but the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again, because now humanity had hope, and hope was the most dangerous weapon of all.